Pikachu, I choose you! As a Euro, my relationship with Nintendo tends to hit a bit different than how it do for y'all burger humans. I mean, the video game crash ain't even real. Y'all just made that up. We had MSXs, Amigas, Spectrums, Acorns, Master Systems, Commodores, Ataris, and PC-88s, mate. No time for the big N to swoop on in and become ubiquitousy with video games. NES, SNES, or N64 all sold like butt where I grew up, and that has an effect on how something still as big and worldly as Nintendo can have its influence. This is why my first interaction with the company was through bootleg Turkish Kinder Eggs and the immensely scrunkly Mario figures that came out of them. That certainly instilled a fondness, but a very different type, you know? No warm memories of comfort playing Super Mario World on my SNES that could insta de facto endear me to their later outputs. Instead, because of these little freak men and also my eventual Game Boy library being exclusively bootleg cartridges, which was a thing so big here, Nintendo of Europe rolled out Mario with a steamroller to crush carts in front of a Dutch marketplace that sold them as if that would stop anything. Nintendo, to me, was very weird-coded back then. And what wouldn't help this was that due to my age, when I finally did start digging into their output proper, I would also fall headfirst into their rebellious phase. Yup, that's me. Now you may be wondering how I got here. Well, it's actually due to my employer getting a little silly with it. You see, after their flop era, I'd wager they may have realized that what worked back when they had whole control over at least the US market wasn't working anymore now that third-party support had all but dried up. So I think, honestly, perhaps what happened on Cube was just a conceited effort to diversify their core output by bringing formerly handheldly things to the bigger screen and even expanding who and what could or would be considered core. Like how Treasure got to do a Wario game, or Sega if Zero joined, or how Luigi's Mansion was a first-time directing effort by someone who had previously only done assisting jobs. Nintendo setting sail on yet uncharted seas. Bucking trends, upsetting what core fans they had left, and honestly finding new ones along the way, as while I did like the first 3 gens of Pokémon a lot, I could not have been any more excited for a Poke title that would kick off like this. This grin. This motherfucking grin. The big dumb desert bike. The crimes committed in explosive fashion. Ooh! My dirge of Cerberian, Dragon Ball Z, and Edgelordian teenage dreams were being catered to in a way Nintendo never really had before.
Oh, you like Pokémon games with grins, don't you? Well, I sure have a grin for you.
And I do think that is because there is this rebellious, art-gamey, almost punky, love-delickian energy to this time of Tendo. As this mon is virtually more in common with fucking like Hokage Shadow King or some shit than it does with the handheld mainlines. Like it isn't grounded in real-life inspired settings like those are. Not as child-coded either, or as rounded and even safe, which adds a, dare I say it, bootleggy uncanniness, akin to sliding that there marketplace telefang up in your Game Boy's Poke slot. Not to say that this isn't still obviously a Pokemon game though. You do all the basic Poke things. Poke the centers, poke the marts, gym the trainers, turn-based the battles, though entirely team-based in this case, and catches the Moleth. But all of this will be hit it different, being that, for example, one can only steal Pokemon from other trainers. There's no wild critters, no random battles, only theft. No picking starters too. We got our edgy angel, devil, light and dark Eevee combo, and while there is a team of flamboyant villains, our main lad actually used to be a part of them. And on top of that, there's no walkable, circular, linear trek. It's just this map-ass map, bike blasting places, and in general, on all fronts, I'd say it does a lot to subvert the Poke tropes in an effort to make Coliseum a wee bit more cool. Slugma? Why don't you fucking slug my nuts? Wait, no. See, I would argue that thematically, Pokemon is generally about connecting through collecting, interpolating IRL spaces very literally with Go, and getting people to link up also very literally to trade, share, discuss, and compete. It's basically the defeating God through the power of friendship JRPG shonen thing realized most vividly and tangibly due to its ludic meta portability. But with this being a console game, even with those 4 cube holes, getting that shit to resonate the same way wasn't gonna fly, I think. Especially the grindy, more casual, demoting playing to a secondary act type of play was going to be really fucking boring on the big screen. And so, even without this having been part of Nintendo's alt phase, the devs would have had to reconsider how to make a Poke tick on console different regardless. Which, again, is a energy I get right away from how it presents itself. Big explosions, kicking things off, and then, boom, decommissioned train out in the desert, only to then catch 2 ruffians exiting the bitch. As the sign sways and the harmonica plays, revealing the train to be a cute and colorful steampunk diner on the inside. You don't even really do anything in here. It's just a hang around, chat, take in the vibe, watch your TV, and learn to download type of thing. Leaning on the hangout ability from the jump. And tone, too. A somewhat darker tone. You being this smirking, explosion-causing thief man is obviously already quite the switch up from the Ashen ones, but the very next zone is a beautiful oasis town with rings of flowing blue water fallingly adorning its rising layers, and an active kidnapping going on right at the entrance. None our main boy can't fix, of course, but that sure as shit does establish Colo as having a danging identity all its own. A edgy identity. Hey, is she doing okay? Our next stop as well just so happens to be Pyrite Town, the town that looks more like something out of Digimon World to me, with its wee scrap-constructed homes, its dead dark Midgarian dirt, the rustic signs, steamy pipes, and streets paved in unstreetian materials. Every town a situation in some way relating to the evil gang, the funny woman, and even you yourself. All presented adorably, of course. Like, honestly, I was expecting there to barely be any plots, given that that's how I know the Pokémon at this point in time. But nah, like, yeah, sure. There's no hours of cutscenes, it's no fucking Final Fantasy or nothing with giant motivations or emotions. You're still just a silent boy, and our girl is also just kind of like, Lamau, I trust you, we're friends now. It has those aspects, but I really like how it works with them to still provide hella quirk-ridden mysteries and personality-rich towns that I 100% loved exploring because of this. There's some stuff structurally I'll get into later regarding this, but for now I think even just highlighting how the NPCs have actual things to say and how there's so many real-ass characters among them too goes to show how this show goes. Like, it's not just the same 4 or 5 sprites all giving all caps tutorial text over and over, and none of that is even getting into how unique the many building interiors are. Pyrite, for instance, has everything from freeable criminals and buff-man mare guy bookcase button secret doors to a sketchy honeybee inn-esque hotel instead of a regular P-center, and people telling you to go fuck yourself. It's got spunk. It's got moxie. I like it. Then there's this amazingly, windingly vertical tree town, and it's tons of wee paths on different levels of elevations with winding waters flowing like waters, luscious greens, and this beautiful Torchic painting. And also, this old lady who wants to fuck her dog. Honestly, there's a lot of horn dogging going on in this bitch in general. So many NPCs will remark how cute you and your gal pal are, FF16 style, and there's also this big underground neon lit Midgard town full of simps for the big booba lady called Venus who leads it all. It all most certainly goes to add a slightly more mature feeling edge you wouldn't normally get from this franchise. The wholesome days of you are all motherfuck and in but everybody will pull out are long since over, as we have townies who update their dialogues with every major event now. Shit's living, breathing, enhancing these carefully crafted spaces with many a moving cog of personality. Which works especially well with the town-based turmoils, being that I could really sense whatever is up here permeate and elucidate by my brightenings as I cleared shit up. There's nothing profound, obviously, but it is cute. Like, I dug being in these bitches based on their aesthetics alone, but having the hangouts have such impact on them really made me care about Pokemon Colo even more. El Colo Colo? Gato Colo Colo. I think I have an idea.
Everybody, get ready for Colo Colo Cat. Colo Colo Cat. Colo Colo Cat is the best. Colo Colo Cat. Colo Colo Cat is my friend. Colo Colo Cat. Everybody, Colo Colo Cat is the best. Colo Colo Cat. Colo.
Hey man, I don't think you should be saying that. Despite the map-picking places, parts of the world will also link together in other neat ways. Like the Midgard town down the elevator in Mirror B's Bando in Pyrite then leads to the deep down, deep ground underground sewer basement of the Coliseum, where you'll find a fucking metro station to take a underground train to the far-off desert lab, which will also be accessible above ground as its own zone too. Not to mention how, I guess, Metroidvania-ish by nature of the puzzles one slowly, playfully unlocks all of this, recontextualizing certain buildings at later points in the game by way of keycards, backdoors, and Wii vehicles. Going up from the basement town on a UFO into the top part of the Pyrite power station from hours ago I didn't even know had a top part, to get a flute I could use back in Forest past the mossy water cave down the cheeky slope next to the Poke Center in Forest Town. I just really love shit like that. I found this a incredibly rewarding game to explore, and for similar reasons I also dig how the dungeons are framed. The first one being this crime-based raid where you have to use trickery to get in to then proceed to bust down doors and asses. But the lab of prior mention is as if this sneaky infiltration, conniving around and beating up dweebs to get keycards and clearances for all the many locked-off levels. It is very minor, but adding such a clear intent to what you're doing does, at least to me, make it feel as though more than simply going through the motions fighting endless battles. It's a variety, basically. Coliseum ain't just a game about being the best there ever was or catching them all. You're sleuthing, criming, and breaking and entering, all for the purposes of a greater plot, and that context trickles down into the gameplay. I figure this may ring a little moot given how the modern games is, but something about seeing these up-close, expressive, well-animated 3D creatures getting their shit clobbered in by one another, I don't know, that hits a little bit different than when it's just shaking sprites, you know? In fact, honestly, maybe shit ain't mooted at all. Violent and Shield or whatever the fuck look simple ass and have quirky pacing with less camera work. For budgetary, dev time, and design reasons, I'm guessing. But I wouldn't be surprised if during testing maybe some points were raised along the lines of, you know what, maybe I don't want to see Pikachu cry. And so, thus 3D but the wiggle pixels mentality, as man, they really do show you the consequences here. Like, look at how sad he is. I feel fucking awful now. Sadly though, because of all this, the battles tend to also be slower than a lean sippin' slowpoke. On the upside, there's far less of them, and they do feel a bit more planned and directed to me. Because, like, I don't know, I think back to playing Gen 3, and I remember most battles being me just hitting A, trying to clear shit as quickly as possible. But because, again, there's no Wildmon here, and only trainer battles, and only a select variety of creatures to steal, they could set up more traditional RPG battle situations. I certainly found myself thinking a lot more, and being in trouble a lot more too. I think I died only once, to be honest, to this mega fuck-off big dick boss who has Pokemon that cast Protect and Earthquake interchangeably every turn, which, you know, that's a fucking tactic-ass tactic right there. That's like actual meta human player mechanical abuse type stuff. But even then, I got close to death many other time too. Though, in a way, I generally found brain-proddingly engaging. The lack of randos, for instance, has a pretty big impact on the flow of environments, with there being more time for adventure gamey hanging out, solving problems about town, free of constant based interruptions. Granted, there is still some of that, but it always felt very woven into the mystery sleuthing, slowly unfolding this worldwide organized crime and corruption plot digging dungily deeper underground. Especially with this thin, fonted, chunky, graphic, goofy, stumbling into scenarioed, punctuatedly written, damn near Dreamcastian aesthetic, reminded me a heck of a lot of Rent-A-Hero. Lots of connecting little light-hearted curio adventures in colorful locales with quirky peoples into a simple but fun enough RPG story type beat. That said, if I did have one complaint, then it is how slow the battle system is. Like, just cause there's less of it doesn't mean that you don't still mostly battle, and Jesus fucking Christ, these shits can take fucking forever. Can't fast forward none of it, and defo not all battles are hella involved either, so in many cases it can come across as if the wait is just postponing the inevitable. Where it's like, I know how this is going to play out. I just need to watch the rain or sandstorm animation play several times before I can fucking do any of it. And the fact that the game is harder also means that there is so many status effects to deal with. So much paralyzes and confusions, which I also just see as simply stalling shit. Colo became very soul-draining during the final hours of its time, to say the very least, and that is sadly also where the story just sort of fizzled out, with the final location being very combat and nothing much else. But hey, I'm still glad I finally scoped out Coliseum regardless. Because I mean, I've been looking at this game ever since childhood. I've never been one for handheld gaming, despite many of my favorite games being on handhelds, and well, that's because I spent my time on GBA, DS, and PSP wishing that these games were on the big screen. And so, to have a Pokémon title grant me that wish, particularly in a way so otherwise suited to my taste as well, is pretty fucking cool, to be honest. Especially because, while I lack traditional American Nintendonian fondness for first-party tenor games, I sure as shit do have a fondness for Pokémon. If you know me outside of YouTube, even passingly, you will know that I am the Pikachu. Pikachu Discord PFP drawn by my friend Cake. Many Pikachu emojis. Pikachu reaction images. Pikachu in many of my LaFunny video edits. And I mean, look at this boy! What a rare Pimerses. A real pickled chew, if you will. Little man's drinking him's tea. A big burger for a big kid. Present the Pika. Hold the Pika. Why do we have hands? The Pika. And while I didn't get to catch one here, shit like this and this game in general does kind of make me want to flex my newly purchased modded Wii U and that their upcoming N64 Mr. Core a little bit, I think. Like, maybe it is simply time for the Nintendo Tuber Arc. Covering all the games the generic Nintendo tubers are too scared to talk about. Heh! Gino, more like Boomer Sans. Nintendo rolls the worst joint ever. Ask to leave. Club Sega. But yeah, I think it'd be fun to cover some more Nintendo games on here and lend them a perspective I don't think you really hear a lot within the English-speaking YouTuber realms. Harnessing the bootleg, embracing the dandy, shaming the Reggie, weaponizing my foreign, and giving the true holic perspective on this shit, pretty much.
Hey, what's up? It's
Low Clocks here with a brand new video on the new video game Pokémon. Fucking Pokémon, let's go. Pikachu. Here you see Pikachu on the boat. I called him MF Doom. After the rapper MF Doom. He's on the boat. It's very nice game. You can throw the Pokeball. 10 out of 10 from me. Thor Low Clocks signing out. Bye.